Night Callers Bigfoot Radio.
Good evening and welcome to Night Callers Bigfoot Radio. It is October 29th, 2017, and you're here with your hosts, Lori Hood and Lauren Smith, and I believe Ricky Smith might be on the line as well. How are you guys doing tonight?
I'm doing great.
Good deal.
I guess Ricky's not here.
He might be getting ready.
Okay. Hey. You know what? It got so cold last night. It was awesome. We had frost this morning.
We had that the other day.
I am wondering if that means we're going to have a real winter this year. I hope so. I do.
An actual, honest-to-God, cold in December winter. I don't know.
Yes. Like real Christmas. You know, it doesn't have to snow for Christmas, but it's not Christmas if you have to run your air conditioner. That's just stupid. Everybody's got their ugly Christmas sweaters and shorts.
Yep.
And sandals.
It's pretty ridiculous in the South.
It's awful.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to tell you that we hooked up the bionic ear to a sound system inside the house, so we can turn off all the lights and be in the house and listen to everything. Because if we're outside, it seems like we don't hear as much. It was just amazing, the things that we were hearing last night. And we left it on all night. So this is what was happening. Every time there was something out there, howling or hooting or whatever, crunching on acorns or whatever, we'd wake up. So it was all night. And I'm just duh. So, but I tell you, I'll capture it and bring it on next week, but we had two hogbillas fighting out there. It was just incredible. Extremely loud roars and everything like that. So it was really awesome. But I wanted to share, before we bring our guests on tonight, the newest owl recording. I have a lot of owl recordings, but all of them are really old, and I really wanted a pristine owl recording, and this one woke us up at 5 o'clock this morning. So if you don't mind, it's 2.5 minutes long. Do you mind if I play it?
Yeah, no, go ahead.
All right, here we go. Hear that echo? Then they'll say, well, if you hear an owl that echoes, it's not a real owl. It's a Bigfoot. But that's not true. This is a real owl, and it is echoing. It's super loud. Hold on, it gets better. Actually captured the banter, the chimpanzee sound that barred owls make. Kind of distorted on this program. That's enough, Al.
Man, that is
me.
such a clear recording, though. I mean, it really is pristine.
It seemed distorted to me on my end because the actual recording is very clear. So it was like,
it's pretty clear on my end.
Good.
It's really clear on my end. And the thing, I'm sure some of our listeners listening are like, oh my God, why are these people playing owl calls instead of, talking to our guest? Owl calls are extremely important in Bigfoot research because you hear it so much and you have to learn to distinguish between an owl call and what you think might be a Bigfoot call because they do imitate owls a lot. So that is important.
And not only
is
that, but if they do echo, that does not necessarily mean that it is not a real owl.
Right.
There's been a lot of, I've heard this said, that if it echoes, then it's going to be a Bigfoot or a person. And that's not necessarily so. Because it could depend on the geography and where it's at, and just the fact that it was a frost, it was extremely cold, sound travels, it's distorted. As you know, I talked about cows. Oh, my God, these cows drive me crazy. They will sound like a Bigfoot howl, and then at the very end, you realize it's So, yeah, these cows over here are very vocal. So, but anyway, I'm going to stand back and let you bring on our guest. I'm excited about Ken Gerhard, the monster hunter. So, yes.
Okay. All right. Ken, is that you?
Yes, I'm here. Good evening, ladies.
Yes. Hi. Thank you for joining us. It's really good to hear from you.
Hi.
Hi. Lauren, thank you for having me on. It's an honor to be here, and I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you. We were just playing a recording of an owl call that Lori got, and it's just the most pristine owl call that we've ever captured, so it was very exciting. So we're very excited to have you on here. You do everything, and you've been everywhere, so I know we only have a limited amount of time with you, so I just would like to dive right in, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Whatever you feel like talking about. It's that time of year. Even people that aren't interested in Bigfoot maybe have an interest this time of year, right? It's kind of the the monsters and the things that go bump in the night. So maybe we have some people listening in tonight that'll learn something new.
Scary. Yeah.
Yep.
So I did read on your bio. This is something I didn't include in your bio for us, but that I read on your bio, that you were born on Friday the 13th.
Mm-hmm.
Is that true?
Yeah.
So that's interesting.
Of October.
Even more so even more interesting than that, you were born on Friday the 13th, October 1967, exactly 1 week before the famous Patterson-Gimlin footage was shot. That is awesome.
Yes. Just like the Patterson-Gimlin footage, I've celebrated my 50th anniversary recently. So.
Well, you don't look 50.
Not that I'm trying to steal any thunder from that monumentous piece of film, but yeah.
Well, it's kind of like you were born to do this.
Yeah, maybe. I've had a lot of things that have happened in my life that kind of led me in this direction. So, but that may have been the first thing.
Well, that is exactly what I was about to ask you. What got you started in this? Was it an experience in Sasquatch, or was it just something cryptozoological, anything like that? But if you want to go ahead and tell us how you got started, we are here to listen.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, I didn't have the dramatic encounter that a lot of researchers, who've had their lives changed. I always think that's an amazing thing when someone is not even really interested in Bigfoot and then they have an encounter and it just kind of changes their whole perspective and their whole life. But I basically, when I was a kid, I just saw a TV show about Bigfoot, and they were talking about the cast of the footprints, and they showed some of the Patterson film, and I was about 8 or 9 years old, and like a lot of 8 or 9-year-old boys, I just thought it was the coolest thing I'd ever heard. So that was that time period in the late 70s when you had a lot of, shows like In Search Of, and Bigfoot appeared on the $6 Million Man, and the Legend of Boggy Creek. All that stuff was kind of going on, so it was a good time. And it was just been a lifelong interest. But one thing I always tell people is, I owe a lot to my mother. She was a huge inspiration to me. She took me all over the world. She was very adventurous and supported my interest in a lot of this stuff. And I got to go to South America, the Amazon, Australia, Loch Ness, all these places when I was growing up. So it's just been,
amazing.
It's been a lifelong journey.
You've lived like a million lives.
I feel very blessed. I definitely do.
That's awesome. So experience-wise, what was the first experience you've ever had? Have you had an experience?
I for many years I kind of dropped out of I wasn't really doing cryptozoology as a career, I should say. I was my career was as a musician. I was touring around. I did a lot of cool things for many years in that field. But then about 20 years ago, I began to, when the internet started to break, I began to get interested in Bigfoot and cryptozoology again because of, the internet. Now all this information is out there. And I was able to meet some researchers here in Texas that took me under their wing at that time, and they had sightings and experiences, and they started taking me out in the woods of mostly like the piney thickets of East Texas here, and I began to experience things. Like other people, I heard vocalizations that I couldn't quite explain, kind of the primate hoops and wood knocks and, some of those types of things. My most dramatic encounter was in July of 2003. I heard something like a primate grunting at me and some other researchers from in northern Texas near the border with Oklahoma. And, we didn't see it. It was deep in the brush, but it was close by. But we found other evidence the next morning, footprints and some mutilated animal carcasses and things. So that was the most convincing thing I've ever experienced. I haven't seen one with my own eyes, but those vocalizations which I recorded are, definitely a large, huge sounding primate in Texas, and that certainly shouldn't be out there. So, that's most of my experiences, just vocalizations and finding some evidence, some shelters or I guess structures and things that look like they could have been related to the phenomenon. And I often tell people that I'm fairly objective in my research, a little bit skeptical, so I'm only about 90% convinced that they exist because I haven't seen one with my own eyes, but I'm pretty much there.
Well, that's not too bad. I've never seen one either. I've had experiences, been doing this for a long time and haven't seen one, so I'm right there with you. So tonight, I know our title is Night Callers Bigfoot Radio, but we are open to all cryptos. So cryptids, sorry. So if you have had an experience with anything else, or if there's anything else that you want to talk about, feel free. We're very open to it.
Okay, cool. I love all that stuff. I mean, Bigfoot is obviously probably the coolest cryptid, in many ways. You think about it, but it's a field that's very vast, and we do have a lot of other cool things there, like lake monsters and Thunderbirds and mystery cats and giant snakes, and I mean, yeah, it just goes on and on and on, and I've investigated a little bit of everything, so.
So have you been to the Scottish Highlands to see the Loch Ness or search for the Loch Ness Monster?
When I was 15, I was there, and that was the first field research. Even though I was a young man, I had a a little 8mm handheld movie camera, so I was trying to film, camping out by the lake, trying to get something on film, and I interviewed many of the local people there about their sightings or thoughts on the Nessie. So I've been trying to get back there, and I'm hoping, it's been 35 years, but I'm hoping I can get back there maybe this spring. I'm talking to some guys over there that have a boat, and so it's one of those enduring mysteries, It's a really great one.
Yes. Back to you, Lauren. Sorry, I didn't mean to jump in there. I just wanted to know. That's where I would love to go, actually. Oh, my goodness, I would love this.
Yeah, and just a quick thought on that, because, many people do visualize Nessie as a kind of plesiosaur, which is like a long-necked marine reptile that lived 65 million years ago or before. That's kind of the common, and based on the eyewitness descriptions, that it kind of seems like it should be something like that. Most of the researchers I know who are very serious lake monster researchers tend to be more conservative with Nessie, and they feel like that Nessie might be either a giant eel. There are some big eels up in those types of water, so it could be a monster-sized eel. And another theory is that it could be a sturgeon, which is a big prehistoric-looking fish that swims in and out of lakes from the ocean. So there's a lot of theories. I tend to feel that, or at least in my last book, I wrote about how Nessie might be a giant amphibian, which isn't my idea. Other people have mentioned it going back to the 1930s, but amphibians can tolerate cold water better than reptiles, and many of them, like giant salamanders, can absorb oxygen through their skin, so they could actually sit on the bottom of a lake. They don't have to come up for air all the time, so they could remain hidden pretty well. So a lot of good theories. A lot of people think that Nessie is all a hoax, and there have been several hoaxed photographs associated with Nessie. That's true. But there is enough evidence, I think, when you look at some of the footage, the Dinsdale film and a couple others, and also the fact that there are thousands of sightings going back, to the 1930s, and a lot of them people that live by the lake there, and they can usually tell the difference between a wave, a wake, or a seabird, all the things that have been suggested as Nessie mimics.
Right.
Okay, what about werewolves? I want you to know werewolves just terrify me. I can't watch a werewolf movie without having nightmares. So could you tell us some werewolf stories, or?
Yeah, I can tell you a couple werewolf stories. I can't tell you for sure that werewolves exist because I don't have a lot of evidence, but there are, of course, some.
Well, that's good. I'm glad you don't.
Yeah, well, mainly my personal experience is that in 2009 I flew to France and I did a TV show for the History Channel where I investigated a creature that was described as a werewolf, and it's a very old story. It comes from the 1760s. At that time in the south of France, the mountainous southern region of France, in a remote area, a creature known as the Beast of Gévaudan was reported and alleged to have attacked 60 to 100 people, maybe killed as many as 100 people. And it was described as looking like a wolf, but much larger, with little pointy ears, sharp teeth. Legs may have been longer in the front or the back. It had a really long tail with a tuft in the end, and it was red with a black stripe down its back. And not quite a wolf, but wolf-like, and it created pure hysteria in France for 3 years. They tried to, King Louis XV sent soldiers and wolf hunters and all these, because it was an uprising. People were terrified of this thing. And what's really weird is this creature mostly attacked women and children who were usually out by themselves at the edge of the woods with tending to small herds of livestock. So the men would work hard labor, and the women and the children at that time, everyone was really poor, would watch these cattle and sheep or whatever, but that's when they would get attacked. And the Beast of Gévaudan would literally decapitate and eviscerate and rip limbs off of its victims. It seemed impervious to bullets. They tried to poison it and do all these different things, and so it was finally allegedly shot by this guy named Jean Chastel, a hunter, and he used a silver bullet, which is where we get the whole notion that silver bullets are good for killing werewolves. And but as with many mystery animals, the carcass was buried in an undisclosed location, and no one knows for sure exactly what the Beast of Gévaudan was. So it's a pretty cool story, but it's the closest thing, I think, to a real werewolf that we have on record, well-documented case. Here in the Americas, of course, my good colleague, my colleague and good friend Linda Godfrey of Wisconsin has written several good books and researched something known as the Beast of Bray Road or the Michigan Dogman. Dogman reports have turned up recently all over the place, but seem to be concentrated in the Midwest, Wisconsin, Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Kentucky, those areas, Maryland. And people describe something that's not Bigfoot. They're adamant that this thing has a long snout or muzzle like a dog or a wolf, but it is walking up on its hind legs, and it's very hairy and powerful. And, we hosted an event, I guess, it was last year. We did a Dogman Symposium up in Ohio, and we had different people talk and speculate about it. I can't honestly say, it's all speculation. I can't say what these dogmen are, only that a lot of people are reporting them, and the reports are now worldwide. And it does seem to be something different from Bigfoot, although some people think it is a type of Bigfoot. I tend to think it might be something more supernatural because there's a lot of other weird stuff that seems to be attached to these dogman encounters.
One of the things I heard was that when they look at you, it's like there's nothing. It's not like looking into the eyes of a dog or anything like that. It's almost like looking into the eyes of a shark. There's no emotion there at all. It's just dead eyes. And then other people have associated it with evil. They felt evil when they felt they had feelings of impending doom and evil when they saw one. And I just tell you what, just something that tears you. And these reports in France, were they full moon events when this would happen?
No, a lot of them were during the day.
Attacks and
they were during the day when people were out tending the cattle. I don't think there may have been some night attacks too, because there were so many. But I mean, a lot of them were in broad daylight. But there were, these people were isolated who were attacked. So oftentimes their remains were found, or what was left of them was found, and it would say there would be a story saying that this person was devoured at this place on this day, and then someone else was devoured on this day. I shouldn't laugh. I actually stood in a cemetery of a dozen victims of the Beast of Gévaudan when I was over there. So this was real. These people were killed by something. It was a very poignant moment.
Lauren, do you have a question?
No.
Okay. Well, I think that's what I got a million of them. I always do. Okay. The Chupacabra. I was going to say, Linda Godfrey, we had her on the show a couple of times, but it's been a while. I think we need to have her back. But she was an excellent guest.
She's awesome.
And very knowledgeable. Yes, she really was. Chupacabra, we had a Chupacabra person on too, but it was probably back in 2010. I cannot think. It was a lady, if I remember right. we called her the Chupacabra lady.
Probably
She
Phyllis
was-
Canyon.
That's who it was. Yes.
Yeah, she's a friend of mine too. Yeah, Phyllis, the Chupacabra lady. Yep, she's got one stuffed and mounted in her living room, and another one she had frozen. Its head was frozen in her freezer. That's when I first met her. So,
Oh my goodness.
you know, those things are turning up. The ones that we'd call chupacabras in Texas, which are definitely canids, right? They've all been DNA tested. Many of them have been DNA tested, and they turned out to be hairless canids, coyotes, wolves, things like that. They look really weird, though. People are seeing them all the time now. I'm constantly hearing from people that have got trail cam photos or, you know, seen them or...
I've talked to people that have actually seen them as well.
Yeah.
What was
They're popping up everywhere, but they're canids, and they're either diseased or they're mutated or something. They look really bizarre, and it's beyond them being hairless. Some of the ones that I've examined half a dozen remains. Some of them have like these deformities and things, like their legs are different lengths and their teeth are all weird. So I'm thinking there might be some kind of, you know, ecological thing, toxins or pollution or something that's creating causing these wild dogs to look really sick and strange.
Wow.
I don't think they drink blood, and that's where the name Chupacabra comes from.
That's what I was going to ask you.
Yeah, I don't think they're not drinking blood. They're not bloodsuckers, no. I think that's a at least that hasn't been proven. People have claimed that, but no one's proven it yet.
Right. Well, my friend actually saw one here in East Texas, and the way she described it, it sounded like a chupacabra. Its legs were different lengths; they weren't the standard. You know, I believe she said the front legs were taller than the back legs, and that it was hairless and just real strange looking. And the way it ran across the road in front of her as she was driving, and her headlights hit it, and she couldn't really, I mean, it was like she was taken aback because it didn't look like anything she'd ever seen before. So, okay, my next question is about the History Channel series you did, Missing in Alaska.
Yeah.
Okay, where are these people going?
Well, we don't know, but you know, there are 20,000 people that are 20,000 cases, I should say, of missing people in Alaska over the past 50 years. That's 4 out of every 1,000 people that are reported missing every year. Some of them are found eventually. Some of them want to disappear, I imagine. People do tend to want to go missing sometimes. Some of them wander out into the wilderness, and they either freeze to death or starve to death, get lost, get attacked by bears, fall into a crevasse. There's a million ways to die in the Alaskan wilderness, so that's for sure. But for the purpose of our show, Missing in Alaska, they wanted us to investigate some different legends and phenomenon in Alaska and see if there could be connected to some of the disappearances. So we investigated Bigfoot in Alaska, which is known as the hairy man or the Bushman. We investigated reports of giant bears and lake monsters and like a giant wolf-like thing and you know, a few like UFO type things and stuff too. That's not really my area of expertise, but so yeah, that was kind of the basis for the show. It's kind of based on the premise that people do go missing in Alaska in large numbers, and in some cases looking at, you know, if there could be some strange phenomenon involved in some of that.
Exactly. Do a lot of people go off the grid in Alaska? I mean, there is a lot of uninhabited wilderness there. Yeah,
and I saw, you know, we would run across people when we were filming in some mountains and things. You see people out there that just decide to go out by themselves, or maybe they're walking their dog or, you know, doing something. And, you know, obviously if you're by yourself out in any wilderness area and something, God forbid, something terrible happens, and you know, you're not getting cell phone reception, whatever. I mean, certainly there's a lot of risk there, you know. So, but people in Alaska are very, you know, they love the outdoors and they're very brave people, so they do, I think, risk that a lot.
Well, I had seen a photograph of supposed Bigfoot find, and it was a tree that had been pulled up out of the ground and turned upside down and stuck back into the ground with the tree roots sticking up in the air. Have you heard or seen anything like that?
Yes, I'm so glad you brought that up because I have an interesting anecdote about that. So when I was in Alaska investigating Bigfoot, I connected with J. Robert Alley, who's Alaska's premier Bigfoot expert, and he's written an excellent book called Raincoast Sasquatch. If anybody's looking for a good Bigfoot book, that's a real good one. So he had some pictures in there of these giant, like you said, full-size trees that were pushed into the ground upside down on Prince of Wales Island, and the root systems are sticking up. So I was doing a lecture this year at Beachfoot in Oregon, and I was talking about Alaska Bigfoot, and I put up some of those photos, and I can't remember if it was Todd Neese, the organizer, or someone else in the audience pointed out to me that they knew people who worked on logging operations that operated the heavy machinery they used to pull trees out of the ground, and that some of those guys, as a practical joke, would sometimes pull trees out of the ground, and that the machines that they drove were actually able to flip the trees upside down and drive them back into the ground. So they think that some of those trees may in fact just be jokes that loggers have perpetrated in some areas. Now, I've also heard that some of those have been found in areas that haven't been logged, so I haven't seen those with my own eyes. So it's a mystery, but maybe some of those can be explained. Who knows?
Can you even imagine the strength that it would take for even a Bigfoot?
Yeah, it would be trees that, like that would weigh tons and tons. I mean, it would be inconceivable almost.
Exactly. I mean, even though we know they have phenomenal strength from what we've heard, it still would not seem to me they would have that kind of strength. That's superhuman, alien strength. I just don't see how that's possible.
Yeah, that's why the heavy machinery explanation makes a lot of sense, because there probably are machines like giant bulldozer type things that can do that.
Okay, we're just kind of going down the line here. Mothman. Now we had Peter, I think his name is Peter Walmsley. Maybe? Jeff Walmsley. Okay. We had Jeff Walmsley on, oh gosh, it's been quite a few years back. And he was, if I'm not mistaken, he either wrote a book or it's been so long ago, he wrote a book or he was a curator of a museum.
He owns the Mothman Museum in Point Pleasant, and he also organizes the widely successful Mothman Festival every year that draws 10,000 people. He's the one that puts that on.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, he's written books. He's written books about Mothman as well.
Okay. The Mothman and the Jersey Devil. Is there any similarity between these two cryptids?
Well, the main similarity, I think, is that people associate both of those creatures with bad, tragic events, cataclysmic events and catastrophes. It's considered to be incredibly bad luck to see either one. One is from West Virginia, one is from New Jersey. Both come from kind of weird areas. But, you know, talking about Mothman and Jersey Devil, I think it would almost be wise to rewind to the Dogman conversation we had a few minutes ago, because I really think that the Mothman and the Jersey Devil and some of these really weird cryptids are probably too remarkable or extraordinary to actually exist in flesh and blood form. So they may be something that's, you know, if people want to use the word supernatural or paranormal, spectral. It's a non-physical phenomenon for the most part, because you can't look at the fossil history or the animal kingdom and find anything that looks remotely similar to Mothman or the Jersey Devil or really the Dogman. So And people tend to have the encounters with those types of creatures tend to have residual, what we call attachments, where things seem to have followed them home, and they have weird noises and smells and sounds, or sometimes they have premonitions or bad things happen. So if you take all of that into account, it seems like all of those things might be some type of really far-out metaphysical phenomenon that we don't really understand. But people are seeing something. I'm not saying they're not seeing them. I mean, people have had really dramatic encounters. Whatever these things are, they are able to take a physical form, it seems, and terrify people. But, they're seen very, very infrequently, and the descriptions are just totally beyond the pale.
Yeah. Well, I would really like to go to the Pine Barrens in New Jersey and do a little Mothman. Well, no, it wouldn't be the Mothman. It'd be Jersey Devil.
But you should go. That would be an amazing adventure.
I would love it. It sure would. I believe I saw, what was it, a Paranormal State, or, it was an old Paranormal State where they went to the Pine Barrens and actually got something that looked similar to the Jersey Devil on Sawyer. It was just standing in the woods, and it looked like it had wings.
Wow.
And but whatever it was producing a heat signature. But whether, it was for TV, so not saying anything against anything that you've been on, but you know how sometimes
they will. Go ahead and finish it.
They will sensationalize things just a little bit.
They do that, and it's an unfortunate thing that happens. But there are many of us that do TV. We fight with producers all the time about them trying to do silly things that they think are good for the show. But I'm sure your listeners will understand this. The TV channels or the networks are paying millions of dollars to produce these shows, a lot of money. So it is ultimately their decision what they want to do with it. But a lot of researchers do see the merit in appearing on these shows because it does raise public awareness about these mysteries, this phenomenon. It does get people to talk about it around the coffee maker or the water cooler, and it's just and it also allows serious researchers to put out the best information they can, as opposed to people that may not be invested that would go on these shows and make stuff up, or be more prone to make stuff up and put misinformation out there. So that's why I think a lot of investigators do these shows. It is a platform to try to get the best information out there.
Yes, and I'm glad they do, even though it may be a struggle.
But there is silly crap that happens too, and you're right. You're absolutely right about that. Mm-hmm.
Yes, I remember I was at a conference, and Mysterious Encounters, do you remember, with Autumn Williams? They were getting people to come on the show and tell about their encounters, their Bigfoot encounters. And I said, I'm not going to do it. They bugged me, and I said, I'm not going to do it because they're going to make me look stupid. Mm-hmm. And sure enough, bless the people's hearts that did decide to do it. They look like something, oh my goodness, bless their hearts. But it was, they made them look like, I don't even, like not reliable witnesses.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
They made them look like people that would just wanted to be on TV. Listen, we'll be on TV, so we'll make this story up. That's kind of the way it came, and it was presented like that. It was just really sad. But now, Lauren, don't let me hog this guest. I know you've really been wanting to talk to him.
No, you're hitting all the questions I have right on the head. So
she always says that. She always says that.
She always says all the questions I want. I did have a question. Have you ever heard of Lechuza?
Yes, absolutely have heard of Lechuza.
So have you done any research on that? That one freaks me out quite a bit.
Well, Lechuza. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, so I live in San Antonio, Texas, and we have a lot of legends here, and many of them are derived from Mexican American or Latin American culture. And Lechuza is, which kind of means owl, is in Spanish is kind of perceived mostly as a witch, a shape-shifting witch that will turn into either an owl or kind of a harpy type thing with the head of an old hag and a bird's body, and they will do all kinds of devious, malevolent things. They will put curses on people. They will try to whistle and draw you into the woods at night, and you're never supposed to respond to the whistle, by the way. So there are a lot of stories about Lechuza. Some people try to associate or relate Lechuza to sightings of flying cryptids and creatures, which we've investigated a lot of those too. So that's what I know about Lechuza. Did I miss anything? Was there anything that you wanted to add to that?
No, that's about it. We have a friend that would tell us stories about it, and it's a creepy one for sure.
Yeah, it is, and I've even interviewed a guy one time who told me that he knew of I've heard stories, people shooting these lechuzas in Mexico, and they're like a bird when they're shot, but then when people run to the body after it's fallen to the ground, it's an old woman. And I know a gentleman I interviewed one time who told me that his family actually killed a lechuza by throwing her into a fire, and that she turned into a bird. And so I hear a lot of weird stories about that. I don't know what to believe, but it's a very prevalent and very scary legend in Mexican American folklore.
Yes, one more thing to look over my shoulder, especially since I have so many owls out here.
Probably chose the wrong night to bring this up, but I know that one wasn't necessarily included in your bio, but I was sure that you had heard of it. Especially being located where you are. Yeah, that's a creepy one. It kind of goes along with Thunderbird. If you would like to tell us, that's one of the cryptids that I haven't really heard much about or researched much. So anything you could tell us about your research on that would be great.
Yes, absolutely. I became involved in Thunderbird research many, many years ago because there have been a lot of sightings in Texas, South Texas, where I live. The name Thunderbird, which a lot of people associate with a car or a cartoon or a bottle of wine that you can buy at a gas station, it's actually based on many Native American legends all over North America, from the Pacific Northwest to the Southwest deserts to the Great Plains to New England. Everywhere you go, there are these legends of what are called Thunderbirds, which are described as enormous, monstrous birds, airplane-sized birds, much larger than anything known, and they are often depicted on the tops of totem poles and things like that. But the name Thunderbird implies that the beating of their wings creates thunder and they shoot lightning out of their eyes, but the scientific suggestion is that maybe these giant birds exist and that they use the storm fronts to glide on because they're so big and massive. And as you know, when a storm front's coming, there are these great thermal updrafts at the front of that. So, but there have been many modern sightings of Thunderbirds. Here in Texas, it's known as the Big Bird, kind of based on the Sesame Street character, and it's been reported in the Rio Grande Valley since the 1970s and all around San Antonio and elsewhere. There are Thunderbird sightings from Illinois, a lot from Illinois, Pennsylvania, Alaska, and other states as well, kind of here and there. The typical description is that they look like giant eagles or vultures or condors, kind of raptor types of birds with a hooked beak, and that they have wingspan of about 12 or 15 to 20 feet across, dark feathers, usually black or brown or charcoal or gray. And then the other descriptions that I sometimes get are people describe something that's not a bird at all. They call it a Thunderbird, but it's completely reptilian. It doesn't have any feathers. It has leathery skin, bat-like wings, and people say they look very prehistoric and basically are the flying reptiles known as pterosaurs.
Okay.
And there were some big pterosaurs back in millions of years ago as well. So those are the kinds of sightings that I investigate. But they're more prevalent than people realize.
I guess they are, because, I mean, it's just something you don't hear about much, or I don't hear about much.
Well, here, I have an interesting theory about that. We were just talking about this with someone else the other night, but in terms of Bigfoot is such an iconic figure that anybody who, whether you believed in Bigfoot or not, if you thought you saw one, you would most certainly immediately know what it was and say, if you're going to tell someone, say, I think I saw Bigfoot, and this is what it looked like. People probably see these Thunderbirds, and either A, they dismiss it as something that's not that remarkable because they don't know that there are not supposed to be birds that big. So they'll see a Thunderbird and think, oh, wow, did you see how huge that bird was? That was crazy. Wow, okay, well, that was weird. Or maybe people are more reticent and afraid to talk about Thunderbird sightings because they've never heard anyone else talk about it. So maybe they did see a bird that was as big as small airplane, and they thought, I'm never going to tell anybody about that. I don't even know what that was or what to call it, etc.
Have you ever seen that old photograph? It looks like it was back in the 30s, 40s. It's all these men standing in front of a dead giant bird. Mm-hmm. Have you ever seen that photograph?
I've seen several fake versions of that photograph, yeah.
Okay.
Yes, I've got, let me give you a quick synopsis of that if you're interested. On April 26, 1890, an article in the Tombstone Epitaph newspaper in Arizona reported that two ranchers shot and killed a flying monster with leathery wings and an alligator-like head and huge eyes. Estimates of the thing's size in the newspaper article were basically unbelievable. They said it had a 160-foot wingspan and a body that was 90 feet long, which I think that's a huge exaggeration. But there's also a related allegation that 4 years earlier, the Tombstone Epitaph had published a photo which showed a huge winged creature nailed to the side of a barn with 6 men lined up with their arms outstretched, showing that the animal had a 36-foot wingspan. So some researchers have claimed to have seen the photo in the 1960s and 70s, but no one has ever been able to produce an actual copy of the original photo. And extensive searches of newspaper archives, magazine archives have all proved futile. Several researchers have looked into it. So now I'm going to follow that up by saying there are currently several hoaxed versions of that photo being circulated on the Internet, including recreations using what appear to be Civil War-era soldiers crouched around. So I've seen all those photos, and they're all fakes. As far as we know, they've all been staged based on the mystery of the original photo that no one's been able to find. It's an interesting story, right?
Yes, it is, because whenever I saw that, I didn't know if it was authentic or not.
No, those are all fake. I don't know,
it.
send them to me. But I've seen people send me on a regular basis. There's like 4 or 5 that are circulating on the Internet, and people send them to me all the time saying, here it is, and I've always seen them before, and I know they're all faked, the ones that I've seen.
I am sure you've probably seen this one, too. But if I see it again, I'll be sure to send it to you.
Yeah, it wouldn't hurt to send me a copy. You never know.
Well, now I want to, now, Lauren, do you have any questions? Because I don't want to jump in on this thing. Okay. I have always found ancient aliens fascinating, especially the most fascinating thing. Well, there's a lot of fascinating things. So, for one, the crystal skulls, and also the hieroglyphics, the ones that you can see from the air.
Oh, yeah, the Nazca lines in Peru?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
They're pretty amazing.
Okay, now, in your research, and I know that you've probably done some research in that area, have you ever been to Peru? Or?
Yeah, I've been to Machu Picchu. not too far from I haven't been to the Nazca Lines, but I've been to Machu Picchu, which are the famous Inca ruins just north of there.
Huh?
In the Andes. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I don't. I'm sorry. Go ahead. What were you going to ask me?
Well, I was going to ask you a very bold question. Do you believe there's life outside this planet? Do you believe there's extraterrestrials?
I think that if you look at the number of star systems that are now projected, it's a mathematical probability. There have to be millions of star systems out there. It's an infinite universe, so surely there have to be other life forms if you look at it on that scale. I assume they're coming to Earth. I mean, there seems to be a lot of evidence for that, or that they have been to Earth, other species. I've never encountered them. I've talked to people who told me they've been abducted and stuff like that.
Oh, wow.
I do have one,
interesting.
I have one UFO story that's related to Bigfoot, and I know people are always trying to relate Bigfoot. A lot of people ask me about that. Is Bigfoot related to UFOs? I don't think so. Okay, the number of accounts of Bigfoot being seen in the vicinity of UFOs are very, very small. It's just people blow them up. There are more of those up in Pennsylvania, but that's another story. But anyways, years ago I was looking for Bigfoot, or investigating Bigfoot sightings at a place called Charles Mill Lake in Ohio, Mansfield, Ohio. And I was out there late at night, sitting by this lake with another researcher, and we didn't see Bigfoot that night. We didn't hear Bigfoot or anything like Bigfoot that night. But at one point, a giant black flying object, it was triangular with these three flashing lights, completely quiet, no sound whatsoever, passed over our heads across the lake. And I mean, this thing looked huge. We had watched several airplanes fly over that night, so we'd seen, you can hear an airplane, you know what the wing flashes look like, or this was completely different. It was a giant solid black triangle, which I guess in the UFO world people call them black triangles. They're seen all the time, and it passed over our heads, and I tried to get a photo, but it was too dark, and I didn't really have a real super good camera, so I saw a UFO. I couldn't identify it over Charles Mill Lake, where Bigfoot had been sighted. Now, I'm not going to say that it was extraterrestrial because I don't know that. It could have been a experimental military plane or something. I mean, I really have no idea what it was, but I know I saw a black triangular thing fly over the sky. And I found out later on that Mansfield, Ohio, where I saw this thing, is famous for another UFO case where a guy flying a helicopter claimed that a UFO locked his helicopter in its tractor beam and tried to drag his helicopter into a spaceship. So that was a pretty crazy story I heard about after I had my sighting there.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow. That is so cool, though. What you saw, that is so cool. I have never seen anything that I could call a UFO. Everything I've seen the space station fly over. I've seen, I saw the space shuttle come in.
Yep.
That was a ball of fire across the sky. And I'm like, whoa! But it was a space shuttle. And I've seen a few things like that, but nothing that I could say was a UFO, unidentified. So that's pretty cool. Okay, well, we have about 6 minutes left. What do you want to talk about?
Well, what haven't we covered? Let's see. We talked about Bigfoot, the Loch Ness Monster, Chupacabra, Thunderbirds. Boy, we covered a lot of cool stuff, didn't we?
Werewolves.
Mothman.
Yeah.
Okay, I've got one for you.
It's like a variety show tonight.
Yeah, here's a good
ahead.
one. I've been, over recent years, I've been investigating something, and I'm going to call it Littlefoot. And I've been giving lectures about this recently, but all over the world you have legends of little people, right? Said to be like
I've been hearing about that, yes.
Living in the woods or deep in the woods. Now, millions of years ago, there were pre-humans that were very small, like the so-called hobbit, Homo floresiensis, stood about 3 feet tall. It was a little human-like species, non-human species that lived about 50,000 years ago. there are a lot of sightings and reports of something that looks kind of like Bigfoot because it's walking on two legs and it's hairy, but people describe them as being much, much smaller, like 3 to 5 feet tall. And the sightings are all over North America, really all over the world, and there's different names for these things all over the world. Now, before you speculate that these could be juvenile Sasquatches, some of them might be, who knows. But these things, these Littlefoots, are often seen in pairs or groups or seen frequently in the same area. They're not seen with other adult Sasquatches, so maybe there is a pygmy-sized version of some mystery hominid living in the remote areas of our planet. And so I've been investigating those sightings for many years. I investigated something known as the Duende down in Belize. For my TV show Missing in Alaska, we heard about these Alaskan Littlefoots called Ixchinook or Jinxiok, Anukins. There's a lot of names for them up there. In Montana, they're called the Little People of the Pryor Mountains, the Narumbi or Awakule. So there's all these names. You got the Albat Witch in Pennsylvania. So it's interesting. I wonder if anyone out there has ever heard of these Littlefoot creatures or maybe seen some of these things, because the sightings seem to be more prevalent than people realize.
And they're bipedal.
It's bipedal, it's hair-covered, it's man-like, but it's tiny. And that people have, there are legends and there are modern sightings too. In fact, I interviewed a couple in Ohio that saw one last year. On 2 separate occasions, this man and his girlfriend, early in the morning, saw what they described as a little hairy troll rambling up the hill near their home, and it caused their dog to freak out and bark and all that kind of stuff. So, pretty strange stories.
You know what? I admire you because you have such an interesting life. Pursuing all these legends and talking to all these different people, and it's just very interesting. And
Well,
we
thank you.
for coming on our show.
No, I had a great time. You guys asked some great questions. It was a lot of fun.
I tell you what, you were just an excellent guest. So I would love to have you back sometime. We really did cover a lot of different subjects. It was kind of like a cryptid variety show tonight, and it was great, though. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, ladies. Thanks for having me, and everyone out there have a happy and safe Halloween.
Definitely,
yes,
you
too.
as well.
Watch out for those werewolves and, and those owl witches. Yeah. Woo. And we want to let all of our listeners out there thank you for listening to our show tonight. Have a very safe Halloween, and we will see you all next week. Good night.
Good night. Thank you again for coming on, Ken.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks,
Take care.
Ken. You were
Bye-bye.
awesome. All right,
Thank
bye-bye.
you. Bye-bye.
Night Callers Bigfoot Radio.